What's up, guys? Welcome back to Newswave. So yesterday we did have that Resident Evil showcase, and it was mostly about Resident Evil Village, as we expected. That's what they told us. I know people are hoping for a big surprise or something, but it was pretty straightforward. Mostly what we expected. They had another game technically next to Resident Evil Village and a big demo that they dropped for the PlayStation 5. So we'll go over all of that here today. Also, we're going to talk about a lawsuit hitting Nintendo. And hey, you know what? They got 3 weeks into the new year before they got their first lawsuit of the year. So it's pretty good for Nintendo. And we're also going to take a look at sales in Japan around the PlayStation 5 and the Switch just to see how everything's going. Guys, if you enjoy these videos, make sure that like button helps out a ton. If you're new to the Small Wave channel, make sure you subscribe down below. And we're going to start today with Valve. Now, Valve did at least come out with Half-Life Alyx, and it was really good. The problem was it was a VR game. It was cool to see Valve make a big game like that worked to really push the medium forward, but a lot of people would like to see that game not necessarily just be attached to VR because there's just a limited audience there for it. Well, it sounds like Valve may have some other things in the works. This from Gabe Newell in an interview. We definitely have games in development that we're going to be announcing. It's fun to ship games. Now, Gabe Newell goes on further to say that yes, the drive is there to create and ship games now, and that's good to hear that Valve is at least interested in it because it felt like they were just becoming very comfortable just managing Steam. And look, they make a lot of money from Steam, so I feel like they're gonna pick and choose their opportunities for reasons to make games. Half-Life Alyx made sense because they had their Valve Index and they wanted to push that along. I still would like to see them attempt Half-Life 3. I don't think they'll ever be able to satisfy everyone with Half-Life 3. It'll come out, it's at this glorified stage where it's going to disappoint, even if it's like a 10 out of 10 game. It's a legend at this point. It even sounds like they've tried to create Half-Life 3 in the background several times, but I feel like they need to, at least in their mind, like revolutionize video games to create Half-Life 3. If they don't have that gameplay aspect, they're just not going to do it. But who knows, maybe they do something outside of the Half-Life universe. Maybe they just create a more traditional first-person shooter in the Half-Life universe. A lot of things they can do. It's just good to hear that Valve is continuing to push forward with game development. Also, I've told you guys a bunch of times that the Vita means life. It's never going to die because the fans won't let it die. The hacking community won't let it die. Here's the latest example right here. This on Twitter from Andy saying, I wrote a .so loader for the PlayStation Vita to load Android's GTA San Andreas. I then added a bunch of hooks to replace shaders, etc. What sounded like crazy idea at first turned out to be not so difficult. There's still lots to optimize to get it running at a good frame rate though. That's right, ladies and gentlemen. You can even see some video here. That is Grand Theft Auto San Andreas running on the PlayStation Vita. It's incredible stuff there. This is something that I would like to see happen for the Switch eventually. Look, we've talked about GTA 5 going to the Switch, all that. Look, Grand Theft Auto San Andreas is a phenomenal game, and if they're not going to do GTA 5, you might as well at least move that over. Maybe some of the other classic Grand Theft Auto games. It's on Android, as they're saying here, like with cell phones and all this. Why not also just move it to the Switch at least? Because you see here, look, if Rockstar's not going to do it, the fans will. Oh, and do you remember how we talked about some of those trademarks from Square? Gamatsu kept noticing that they were trademarking stuff that sounded like things around Final Fantasy VII Remake. Well, here we go again. Let's take a look at this tweet here from Gamatsu. Update: Square Enix trademarked Ever Crisis in Canada on January 18th and Ever Crisis and the Shinra logo in Europe on January 19th. So once again, things appear to be moving around the term Ever Crisis and that Shinra logo. I still think that Shinra logo is just going to be for merchandise, whether it's shirts or anything else they want to sell, but Ever Crisis keeps coming up. And it does make me wonder if we are going to be getting more information on Part 2 for Final Fantasy VII Remake coming up. There have been some rumors and some talks about there being a PlayStation 5 patch coming up, and I mean, it could also go to the Xbox soon, as that console exclusivity with Sony is coming up in the next couple of months there. So at the very least, it will head to PC, but I would like to see them do some things around Final Fantasy VII Remake, whether it's spin-offs like we had with the original Final Fantasy VII, or like Dirge of Cerberus or Crisis Core. Maybe they play around with that idea, and that could be something that Ever Crisis is linked to, but here they are going around different regions, make sure everything's trademarks, everything's in a row legally. So I wonder what they have for us. And guys, with some of the quick news out of the way, let's get into the bigger stuff. Let's start right away with Resident Evil Village, because it was like the big focus for that Resident Evil showcase. And I guess that's what we'll start with here today. Let's go over some of the basic information. They had about a 20-minute or so presentation that did show actual gameplay, and visually, the game looks stunning. And that was just through stream. If you download it and check it out, I'm sure day one it'll look even better. And there's also a demo that we're going to talk about here in a second, but let's go to the release date. It will be May 7th worldwide, and the interesting part here, it will be cross-gen, PlayStation 5, Xbox Series, PlayStation 4, Xbox One, and PC via Steam. That's right. There will be a version of this game for the PlayStation 4 and the Xbox One. This has brought up some controversy and some different opinions on if it should be there or not. What I will tell you is this game has been in development for quite a while now. The RE engine has worked out very, very well in the Xbox One and the PlayStation 4, and you know what? It's not Capcom's job to push people to the PS5 and the Xbox Series systems. That is Microsoft and Sony's job. Capcom's job is to sell as many copies of this game as they can as a third-party developer, so they're going to target as many people as possible, and that includes the PlayStation 4 and the Xbox One generation. Also, I don't necessarily think this game's going to look like bad or anything on the Xbox One or PS4, and I don't even really think it's holding back the PS5 or the Xbox Series version, since it probably started development on the Xbox One and the PS4, and then slowly started to move more and more to the PS5 and the Series systems as the picture around that became much more clear. As far as I can tell, it'll just look, I'm sure, a lot better, load a lot better, and just run a lot better on the PS5 and the Series systems. But then in true Capcom fashion, they wanted to show us all different types of versions of the game to buy. We have the $60 standard edition, we have the $70 deluxe edition, and the $220 collector's edition. That's right, and this collector's edition includes the Trauma Pack, which has Samurai Edge weapon, Mr. Everywhere accessory, a Resident Evil 7 Biohazard-inspired found footage screen filter, special safe room background music, tape recorder, save point, and immediate access to an especially challenging difficulty setting, and more. I'm not the biggest fan of them taking that challenging difficulty setting and kind of putting it behind a Trauma Pack or a deluxe edition, but then we also have that big collector's edition that also comes with a poster, a steelbook case, and a Chris Redfield figure, as well as a collector's box and art book. Now, the game itself is first person. That's what we were expecting, especially after seeing some of the initial, trailer for it when they were showing it off. Yeah, it felt like they were running through in first person. Ethan Winters is returning for this one, and yes, we did also get another look at like the 12-foot tall vampire lady. It appears like that's who's going to be hunting you as you're running around, I guess. Still some information there that we need to find out about, and the internet's basically fallen in love with her, so I guess it's up to me. I'll take her out for that platinum trophy if we have to. Now, they did show some snippets of gameplay. It was like flashes of it. They showed some of you just kind of walking around, checking out the scenery, showing off how good the visuals were, and then they also had points where they were showing off combat with first-person shooter mechanics, as well as you kind of blocking with your arms and all of this. But they did show the inventory system. It looked like it was pulled from Resident Evil 4, and they also talked about a crafting system that I'm sure could lead to some pretty interesting solutions to different puzzles. And then for PlayStation 5 owners specifically, there is an exclusive demo that is out now. It actually dropped last night for the PlayStation 5, and it's called Maiden. What this appears to be is you're basically just kind of walking around escaping the castle, and according to developers, it is still in that same Resident Evil 8 kind of storyline or universe, but you're not playing as Ethan Winter, you're playing as, I guess, someone they're calling Maiden, and you're just escaping the castle. Basically like a walk simulator, kind of check everything out, see the visuals for yourself on your own screen, and just, I guess, see what they've been able to do with the RE engine for the PlayStation 5. It's cool to have it, it's just not gonna have any combat or anything. However, they say after you play through the game itself, there are gonna be references to that demo, and you might want to go check it out again afterwards. And then they showed something called Resident Evil Reverse or REverse, and when they started showing this, I looked at it and I said, that's like it's like online deathmatch. It's a 6-player online deathmatch with characters from all across the Resident Evil lore, it looked like. And visually, I was kind of looking at this as they were showing it off, and I said, well, that really doesn't, it just didn't look that good to me. I don't know. I mean, I guess it comes with Resident Evil Village, so it's not like they're trying to necessarily just outright sell it as an extra thing. Basically, they say, hey, it's like a thank you. We're just going to throw all these characters together in a game, and you guys literally just have shootouts, I guess, throughout. It's not supposed to be taken, I guess, that seriously. It's an extra thing that they're trying to do with online multiplayer, so all right, I guess. I don't know if it's something I'm gonna spend a lot of time with, but I guess it's there. It comes with your purchase of Resident Evil Village anyway. But for the most part, it was a pretty good showcase. It wasn't too long, and I think it showed everything it had to kind of sell people on Resident Evil Village. And I'm excited to grab it at the beginning of May, and I will be checking out that Maiden demo, and I'm sure we'll be talking about it tomorrow on the Spawncast. Next up, let's talk about Nintendo and yet another lawsuit around what else? Joy-Con drift. And this is something that keeps coming up because because more and more lawsuits keep being filed in different parts of the world. We're gonna go to the latest one here, I guess. Over to Nintendo Life says, in the latest development, Lampert Advocate Inc., a law firm located in Quebec, Canada, has filed a Joy-Con drift class action suit application on the 15th of January. It's now waiting for a judge to authorize the proceedings. You can see they say this application seeks to obtain a compensation for all Quebec consumers who bought the Nintendo Switch and Nintendo Switch Lite gaming systems, as well as Joy-Con and Nintendo Switch Pro controllers. Now, it appears that firm does have a form on their website to allow Switch owners located in Quebec to kind of detail their issues, of course, give their own testimonial, all of this. That's generally what they do with these class action lawsuits. They try to collect as many different instances of this issue, this defect taking place in the real world, and then they present all of this evidence and have a judge authorize them to go forward with it. And it's interesting they brought up the Pro controller, because I don't hear as much about the Pro controller, certainly as I do the Joy-Con and the Switch even itself, like the Switch Lite, because they use the same joysticks. And you know what? I'm a little surprised Nintendo hasn't done anything with a revision yet around the Joy-Con. Like, I know we've talked about the Switch Pro and all this stuff, but if you really sit down and look at it, you go, well, with all these lawsuits popping up, they're not like, oh, you need to release the Switch Pro. They're just saying, hey, the Switch Joy-Con, there appears to be a serious defect with it that you guys are not addressing, and you need to do that. That's what we all figured they would do, but it hasn't happened yet, which is odd, because they could even rebrand the Joy-Con, and then people who have bought the Joy-Con and there's nothing wrong with it, they feel the need to go out and get like the Joy-Con Pro or Joy-Con Elite or just something like that. And then you just slowly replace the current Joy-Cons over time. But now they just continue to face lawsuit after lawsuit. I still think they are going to do something with the Joy-Con before we get to the next gen Switch like 3 years from now. You feel like they just get tired of these lawsuits as they go along, and they can just revise their hardware and I assume move on from it after they take care of the current ones. Next up, let's kind of go back to Capcom here, specifically around their revenue and their forecast going forward. As a while ago, before Monster Hunter World came out, Capcom wasn't in like a great place financially. Really, there were talks about them even being purchased by a larger company, like maybe even a Microsoft. We've seen them make some big moves, but Monster Hunter World took off for them, and as we're seeing now, a lot of their other projects are taking off as well. So much so, they've actually been increasing their forecast to investors now. Specifically, it seems after what was going on with Monster Hunter Rise. Remember that demo just absolutely destroyed the eShop there for a while, and apparently their pre-orders are through the roof currently. This being from VGC, Capcom has told its shareholders it expects to generate almost 20% more operating income this fiscal year, mostly due to stronger than expected digital sales of games like Resident Evil 3 and Monster Hunter Rise pre-orders. On Thursday, the Japanese publisher announced it was revising up its forecast for the year ending March 31st, 2021, with net sales expected to be 8.2% higher at $889 million and net income expected to be 16.7% up at $203 million. I'm gonna tell you now, Monster Hunter Rise is gonna basically sneak in right at the end of that fiscal year for them, and just those few days that it'll be out will catapult their fiscal year. I think that's what they're expecting right now. Just seeing the pre-orders come in, and it continues to top different charts, whether it's Amazon and other places, for overall pre-order numbers and sales already. We saw, like I said, that demo destroy the eShop. It was very difficult to get it, and we expect Monster Hunter Rise along with the Switch in Japan, which, I mean, those two, the Switch itself, big in Japan, Monster Hunter, massive in Japan. You put those together, yeah, those sales charts are going to be crazy to look at. So it's really cool to see Capcom kind of in this position, because I'm hoping this means they'll take chances with some of their other IPs. Specifically, I hope they do something with Mega Man X at some point. I don't know. We'll see there. At least they're trying some things, like we've seen with Ghosts and Goblins, taking the RE engine and trying something there with it. We've heard about Revelations 3 maybe having a pretty good focus on the Switch even. We're seeing Resident Evil Village. We're hearing talks about remakes for Resident Evil 4. So we'll see what other plans they have going forward. It's just good to see right now that Capcom is in a very, very good place. In our last bit of news, let's talk about the sales charts in Japan from Famitsu. Specifically, I look at these from time to time just to see how the PS5 is trending, because I do expect there to eventually be a recovery for this system. I know it's tough because it's sold out everywhere, but we do see it stock occasionally on GameStop, Best Buy, Walmart, Target. That just happened this past week. But let's go over here. We'll start with the top 10 games right now in Japan, starting with Momotaro, which is always at the top of the sales charts. Interestingly enough, it actually jumped 23%, over 100,000 now, 107,000 units, up to 1.6 million. This is going to end up being probably Konami's best-selling game in Japan before it's all said and done. Animal Crossing there at number 2, Ring Fit Adventure at 3, Mario Kart 8 Deluxe at 4, Super Smash Bros. Ultimate at 5, Clubhouse Games at 6, Minecraft at 7, Splatoon 2 at 8, Super Mario Party at 9, and Pokemon Sword and Shield at 10. You may notice something here. That's right, the whole top 10 was just Nintendo Switch games. In fact, the Nintendo Switch made up 94% of the video game market this past week, which means if we go over to the hardware sales, we can see the Nintendo Switch at the top, 170,691. That is up from the previous week by about 3,000 or so units, and that is trending upwards even from the previous year for the Switch. So it is trending in a good direction there in Japan, ahead, remember, of that Monster Hunter Rise release that we just talked about, that being in March. The PlayStation 5 dropped down, actually 7,328. That is certainly having a tough time out of the gate, even tracking below the Wii U when that launched in Japan. And then the PS4, 3,422. It is interesting to see the PS4 still continue to sell better than I figured it would with the PS5 out, but I just think, hey, there's no PS5s. People look around and say, I mean, I guess I'll buy the PS4 and I'll get Spider-Man there. The 3DS, 546, and the Xbox Series system, 160 units. And we've said before, the Xbox, we don't really expect it to do too much in Japan, but yeah, 160 units isn't great for that either. So we keep talking about, oh, if the PlayStation 5 would just get some stock in Japan, it would do better. Obviously, it would do better. I don't think it could do much worse than that, but I almost wonder if Japan is kind of moving on from the PlayStation 5 a bit themselves, the consumers there. We'll have to wait and see until Sony starts just having PlayStation 5 systems in stock. They're trying to figure out where to put the stock. I don't think they're putting it in Japan as much. I think they're putting it more west in like the US, for example, and parts of Europe, as opposed to putting it in Japan, but they're not trending in the correct direction here. Like I said, the Wii U was trending way above the PlayStation 5 in Japan, and we saw what happened with that system. That was more or less worldwide for the Wii U. It actually did okay in Japan, but you figure Sony would at least look at Japan as a good market for them. So far, not so much. So we'll see what happens there going forward. The Switch, though, continues to dominate in Japan, and I think most people just expect that now. And we'll finish up with the comment of the day, as you're seeing here. This is from Ryan saying, no mention of the Hitman servers being abysmal. I'd say that's newsworthy. Yeah, I went through that myself. I posted up on Twitter an image of the disconnection image coming up. It happened maybe every 5 minutes. It would come up and say, you've been disconnected from the server. And I'm sitting there thinking, well, I'm playing Hitman 3. I don't really care that much, but you go in offline mode and you lose a lot of your options on like the main menu. And it's like, wow, that's where we are with some of these games. You don't even expect it to be that reliant on a server because you feel like it's single player, but it still needs the server, and it'll tell you when it disconnects. And it's odd though, like I say, going forward here, there was something that we did not like when Microsoft showed up with their Xbox One. Remember that originally, where they're like, oh, always online, all this stuff. Well, now we're getting games that are single player and you're always online anyway. So we have technically arrived now in 2013. It just took us till 2021 to get there. And ladies and gentlemen, that's gonna do it here for Newswave. If you enjoyed this video, guys, hit that like button, it really helps out. If not, hit the dislike. Leave comments down below about everything we talked about here today. Was the Resident Evil showcase. What did you think about it? What they showed? Are you really interested in the story that they're presenting now? Maybe you like the 12-foot tall vampire lady that's gonna be hunting you, or maybe you're interested to see what happens with Ethan Winters now in Resident Evil Village. And then what do you think about the PlayStation 5 in Japan, or Nintendo revising their Joy-Con controllers, maybe to start getting around some of these lawsuits, because maybe it is about time we get some sort of Joy-Con revision, as we all keep talking about a Nintendo Switch revision. Thanks guys for watching. Have a great weekend. I'll see you back here Monday morning, 8 a.m. Eastern time for Newswave.